Hi, I'm Mike Walsh, a futurist, the CEO of the Innovation Research Group Tomorrow, and the author of a number of books on AI transformation. I've been working on a brand new report with the team at ACEC on the future of the firm. As part of that process, we've spoken to both engineering firms and thought leaders across the technology industry. What we found was really fascinating. What basically emerged from all the conversations we had is that the engineering industry, as we know it, is approaching a pivotal moment, not because of a single technological breakthrough or a sudden economic shift, but because the fundamental logic of how engineering firms create value is now changing. If you think about it, for decades, that model was relatively stable. Firms scaled through people, projects were delivered through effort, value was measured in hours. But that model is increasingly under pressure. Artificial intelligence is entering the industry as a new form of digital labor, not just a new tool. Systems that can generate designs, run analysis, coordinate workflows are happening at a scale that was, frankly, previously considered impossible. At the same time, as many of you know, the demand for infrastructure is accelerating, while the supply of engineering talent is also tightening. More work than people, more complexity than capacity. AI is arriving at exactly this moment. And as a result, the engineering firm is beginning to transform from scaling through labor to scaling through intelligence. And what we've seen is that across this revolution, 6 ideas are emerging. And we've grouped these into 3 deeper transformations. Firstly, how work is changing. Secondly, how firms are changing. And finally, how the entire industry is being redefined. Let's start with the first of these, how work is being reconfigured. And this transformation is really going to the heart of how the practice of engineering is being performed, how problems are solved, where value is created in the day-to-day activity of engineers. And at its core, we believe that this is a shift from execution to orchestration. So let's start with the first of these ideas. AI is expanding capacity, not replacing engineers. We see the most immediate impact of AI not on workforce reduction, but on capacity expansion. Tasks that once consumed hours, document review, design iteration, compliance checks, are increasingly being automated or even accelerated. The result is not fewer engineers. It is engineers with far greater leverage. The constraint is no longer headcount. It's how effectively firms can combine human expertise with digital systems. The second idea is that we see in the future that engineers will become system orchestrators. As AI expands what can be done, it also changes what engineers do. Instead of producing solutions directly, engineers increasingly define the systems that generate those solutions. They set the constraints. They define objectives. They guide exploration. And as AI systems generate and evaluate thousands, even millions of possibilities, the role shifts from creating to orchestrating, from solving problems step by step to designing the very platforms that solve them, which only makes one thing more important than ever: human judgment. The second thing that we'd like to explore is this idea of reinventing the engineering firm. And this goes to the firm's structure, its economics, and ultimately the source of its competitive advantage. This is where the shift becomes structural, from organizations built on traditional labor to ones that are organized around intelligence. So the third idea that we've explored in the report is that the data itself is becoming a strategic asset. I mean, if you think about it, data has always been the heart of what firms do. Decades of project experience, the designs, the decisions, the outcomes, the performance. But historically, that data was either poorly stored or even sometimes forgotten. But in the future, it's going to become the very foundation for intelligence. It's going to allow firms to learn from every project, not just deliver the next one. And this will change the basis for competitive advantage from individual expertise of an engineer to institutional intelligence. The firm in this world doesn't just become a consultancy, but a platform for generating, applying, and scaling knowledge. The fourth idea is the hybrid human AI firm. So the composition of the firm is going to change. It's going to become a kind of a hybrid system where you have human engineers working alongside networks of AI agents, really digital labor that can simulate, analyze, validate, and optimize work, not just in sequence, but in parallel. The result of this will be smaller teams, greater output, more complex problems that are solved faster and better. The defining capability of the firm of the future is not the size of its workforce, but its capacity to orchestrate and organize. How effectively firms can coordinate and balance teams of humans and groups of AI agents. The third section is how will the industry itself change? This is where we move beyond the firm to the industry itself, really going to the heart of how engineering firms deliver, how they engage with clients, where value is created across the entire life cycle of the built environment. The boundaries of the industry are going to begin to blur and shift. So the fifth idea is that infrastructure and assets become a form of continuous intelligence. As we said before, traditionally engineering was designed by its assets. We built assets and projects, and then we moved on. But the built environment is no longer static. We have sensors, digital twins, and connected systems that are turning assets into continuous streams of data. The built environment itself is becoming a living system, generating insight about performance, risk, and optimization in real time. This is going to change the model for engineering firms from episodic delivery to continuous intelligence, from one-off projects to long-term forms of engagement. The real value is going to shift to the project being delivered, to what happens after the construction is complete. And that's the final idea we want to talk about, which is the potential emergence of AI native firms. Firms that were designed from the ground up to be based around digital systems, not retrofitted with them afterwards. They're going to operate differently. Automated workflows, integrated data platforms, AI-driven delivery models. This is going to change the competitive landscape because in this new world, the question is no longer how do we effectively use AI, but rather how does a firm look like when it's been designed with AI at its core foundation? Taken together, these 6 ideas in this report describe something much bigger than just the adoption of new technology tools. They describe a reinvention, a redefinition of the firm, a shift from effort to intelligence, from projects to platforms, from execution to orchestration. The firms that succeed in the future, we believe, will not be those that simply adopt AI or new technology tools. They will be the ones that redesign themselves around. Because in the future of engineering, value will not be defined by how much work you do, but rather by how intelligently you do it.